Welcome back to Brain Fog Chess with me, amateur untitled play Nico Brayton. Um, let's see, I got some more classical tournament postmortems from my games at Boylston Chess Club in Boston. I signed up for the May Tuesday night Swiss tournament. It's the same as the April Tuesday night Swiss tournament, which I already gave some recaps for. You play 4 games on the 4 Tuesdays in May, and it's Swiss style, so you're kind of in a section under 1500, under 1900, or open. I'm in the under 1900 section. My rating at this point is high 1400s. I think it's like 14 to 65. So we're trying to make some progress. Yeah. Let's see. So in this round, I got paired against Haley Cope again. So I had a recap game a couple weeks ago where I played Haley in the April Tuesday Night Swiss, also as black, and I lost that game. Haley played great. I got totally like smushed because I didn't strike out with my pawns early enough in a closed Sicilian. And yeah, so I was like, oh, I'm going to be playing Haley again as black. Well, I got to fight hard. So that's what I did. And I've actually played Haley twice now. So now I played, well, after this game, 3 times. All 3 times as black, which is annoying, but, you know, it happens. In our first game, way back in, I think, December, I actually won, but I was worse out of the opening. Haley played d4 and went for some d4 system where white doesn't go for c5 yet for a while. Not the London, maybe it was like the Collie. And I won because of a queen infiltration on the queen side, but I was worse out of the opening. The most recent game that we played, I lost, like I said, because I got smushed in a close Sicilian. So going into this game, I was kind of expecting Haley to play d4 or maybe c4, something to change it up. Sorry if there's buzzing noise outside. There's masonry work on my apartment building, which also means that I have to move my car out of the parking lot at 7 a.m. every weekday and find street parking in Cambridge, Mass. for 8 hours. For reference, if you don't live in the Boston area, most street parking in Boston requires you to move your car every 2 hours. So yeah, I got screwed over. Anyway, so I will be moving my car in a couple of hours. Anyway, we got e4, and I play the Sicilian against d4. I have a Caro-Kann repertoire. I have a bit of a Pirz repertoire, but I really like the Sicilian. It's my favorite way to play. And surprise, surprise, we got another close Sicilian. I was kind of laughing because we got kind of the same game. And in our previous game, Haley had immediately played g2, Yuffie and Keto, the light squared bishop, in the closed Sicilian. In this game, she kept things open with knight f3. Not open like the open Sicilian, although after knight c6, you can transpose to the open Sicilian with d4. But instead, we got g2 here, so slightly different move order. Would have been the same position if I hadn't studied the closed Sicilian after our previous game, because I didn't want to get smushed again, and knew to play d5 in this position. The disadvantage that white is taking on in the closed Sicilian is that they're not controlling the center with their pawns, and you can immediately punish that. Not punish, you can immediately sort of grab a little bit of advantage from that by taking the center yourself. This is a if I do say so myself, a bit of a cold-blooded move for a club player, because all of us intermediate club players fear IQP structures, isolated queen pawns. Literally, no one likes to play with them because they're a static weakness that is very, very, very easy to play against. It's just the plan to play against an IQP here. I'll show you how white gets an IQP by playing d4. And either white's going to take on c5, and I take back with the bishop. I guess I could play b6, but this is not a good move because, first of all, this long diagonal is going to be miserable with my knight undefended. And second of all, Haley can just force me to have, this one's a pawn, but these wouldn't be the moves, but can just force me to have hanging pawns, which are another static weakness, right? Pawns that can't really be defended by pawns on the side. Really, really easy to play against. You blockade them with your pieces. Mostly you blockade them with knights. You line up all your heavy pieces behind the pawn, and you just target the pawn with everything you have. Easy play. If I'm playing against an IQP, I can probably play like several hundred points above my ELO rating just because all of the correct plans in the position kind of just flow naturally. So this is why no one likes to play IQPs at the club level, but I've been studying this opening, and the IQP is the best way to go. The reason why is because it's really early in the game. All the minor pieces are, of course, still on the board. The best move is to take immediately and then play knight f6. Allow the hanging pawns because that's a waste of tempo and a waste of center control for white. And just start developing your pieces. There's a really cool development scheme here that I was talking after the game about in a post-mortem. You're supposed to put your bishops on both these long diagonals and try to take this knight to ruin white's pawn structure. Anyway, and black actually, I think, slightly more than equalizes there, but basically just equalizes. So yeah, the IQP is totally fine if you're familiar with the plans, and if you have enough minor pieces on, it's actually not that hard to know what to do as the side with the IQP, but it does require, like, stronger attacking skills, which, I'm working on. I don't know if I have strong attacking skills yet, but I'm trying. You put your rooks on the open files and you try to, use your IQP to carve out space in the center in which to kind of plop down your minor pieces, and you just go for an attack. Anyway, we didn't get an IQP because we got a fianchetto immediately. I played knight f6. This is fine. You can also play d4, but I didn't want to allow the knight to e4. White castled. Now I play d4 because knight e4. I take it. I missed that white can throw in this check. This, after I block, allows white to put the knight on e4. And here I made a mistake that shows that my close Sicilian understanding is not as good as I thought it was, or as I would like it to be. I blocked with the light squared bishop, and this is not a mistake, it's just an inaccuracy. I think it goes from minus 0.1 to like plus 0.2, so, not a bad move at all, especially at an intermediate level, totally fine. The problem is it's really, really easy to play against this bishop. And you do so not by playing knight e4, but by playing knight to e2. The knight is coming to f4. The bishop could also come to f4. This knight could come to g5, and essentially there are these two different squares for knights, g5 and f4, that target the bishop. The bishop is pinned, and even if I, just go, like if I just kind of go here, white could immediately play knight g5, or could probably much more likely, to open up the rook, play knight f4. Yeah, and I really didn't like this. Just because I'm going to have to take back with the f-pawn, I'm going to lose the bishop pair, and I'm losing my light-squared bishop, which is the bishop that I ultimately really want to trade for this light-squared bishop. So, I played maturely in that I allowed an IQP, but a little bit immaturely in that I was fearing losing a light-squared bishop. White's right to play this. Like, this is good, but black is actually totally fine here. You can just move the bishop. And yeah, this structure is totally fine for black. But I didn't like this as much because I thought my bishops are, of course, like, passive, and yeah. So, sorry, I didn't actually say. White did play knight e2. And here I thought for a while and played a bad move. A move that at the time I was really proud of. After making it, I was like, this has to be the best move. Just because it's stopping, basically, anything from coming to f4. I played knight d5, right? If the knight comes, I'm going to take that knight and double the structure, ruin white's kingside structure, and it takes too many turns to effectuate this plan of getting the bishop out to f4. Great square for the bishop, right? My queen would love to be on c7, and here I figured at the very least, I don't know. Now I get my queen to c7 or something, and this is fine. That dark squared bishop is not particularly scary. Actually, I'd play queen b6, just target the b pawn, and bring my rooks to the center. This is great. I have the center. Yeah, white has the bishop pair, but one of those bishops is trash. So yeah, I thought that this way of playing made a lot of sense. This is actually a mistake. It goes from, about equal to white being solidly better, especially if white plays the move c4. Not a move I've seen in these structures, but I think that's because I'm not playing knight d5 normally in these structures. This is a really, really good creative move because kind of anywhere my knight goes allows the plan against the e6 bishop. I think the way White played in this game made me think that like Haley really knew the close knew very well that I was supposed to block with bishop e7 and not bishop e6, and was kind of centering her play on like punishing that inaccuracy, because kind of the following like 6 or 7 moves were aimed like immediately against my e6 bishop, to the point where like actually I was able to maybe gain some advantages from how sort of one track that play was. But it made a lot of sense, and it was super instructive for me because like I realized during the game that bishop on e6 is not the move against the rook check. And yeah, this kind of proves why. Well, c4 proves why you don't play knight to d5. Here I made yet another inaccuracy. I should be going back to c7 and just giving up the bishop pair, because on c7 the knight is defending the bishop. I'm not having to take back with the pawn. My knight is immediately coming back in the game because because white is going to take. I can actually just play bishop to d6. I don't need any more protection on the e-file because my knight is now nice on c7. And after something like d3 castles takes, I'm not scared of knight hops. Well, here because I just win a knight. Or really, yeah, no, this is totally fine for me. So yeah, I should have gone back. It's not completely fine. I think this is like plus 0.8. So I haven't equalized, but yeah, I should have just moved my knight back. Instead, I took en passant because en passant is forced. Not actually. But I figured that like, yeah, my d pawn looks nice, but it's not really carving out any squares for me. And also, it's already pretty far advanced. It's easily chippable away at with c3. Not now, because if you play c3, I'm going to be pushing d3, and this looks phenomenal for black. That bishop is going to really struggle to come out. But I figured at some point there would just be an easy chip away. I'm going to not retain the center for long. I might as well give it up now for some tempo. Not the right call. Now white is a good deal better, plus 1.5. Yeah, so instructive opening mistakes. And from here on, we start having a conversation about the g5 square. White, of course, wants to put a knight on the g5 square to pressure my bishop. And with the d pawn taking back, by the way, it's a mistake to take back with a d pawn. You should take back with the b pawn here to get the plus 1.5. If you take back with a d pawn, it's actually only like plus 0.8. I think the reason why is just the very straightforward chess principle, take toward the center. Now white is preparing d4, and even though white's structure looks very weird, this pawn is actually going to have great center control. So I think if this happened and I take, maybe they're going to take back with a knight, maybe the f knight, and just have the center essentially. Another instance of having the IQP actually being the right call. Anyway, but we got d takes c3, and I defend the g5 square because the knight and bishop are both staring at it. So I need to defend with 2 pieces. Now knight g5 would be met with takes, and takes. So don't do that. Haley plays one of the best moves, h4. Now knight g5 is fine because there's a pawn there. So that would be cementing in the knight or bishop. I play h6. I figure this has got to be the best move because not only does it, essentially finish the conversation about g5, but also it gives me luft later when I castle. So it's, good for multiple reasons. And Haley's like, okay, I can't play against your e6 bishop. I'm going to play against your h6 pawn, which is also a weakness in that it's a hook. So white starts making a dark square battery against that pawn. There's going to be a bishop sack, potentially. There's ideas of a bishop sack. Here I could just take the bishop. It's really bad to take the bishop, and I saw that because you're just opening up everything for white. The knight would take back, of course, and then the pressure on the e6 bishop is pretty overwhelming. The queens are staring at each other. That also benefits white here because of white's activity. I just castle. Castling is the best move here. And white plays queen d2 with this battery idea. Here I see we've entered the middle game. So I'm starting to do this thing to avoid playing terribly, where once I think we've entered the middle game, on my opponent's move before, I'm going to have to start making middle game plans. I go eat some food, have some water, I don't know, just kind of stare at all the pretty books in the back room antechamber, soak in the good chess vibes, look at the picture of Harry Nelson Pillsbury, grandmaster from the 19th century, looking very very dapper and official in his suit. He's one of the founders of the Boylston Chess Club. Just kind of gain some inspiration and rest up a bit because you do have an hour and a half on the clock. And coming up with a plan in the middle game requires, calories, mental calm, and yeah, it's taking your time. So I did that. I brought half a loaf of challah bread. I went and ate half the loaf. It was great. Strongly recommend as a middle game snack. Had some water. And when I came back, Haley had played the move. Here is where that happened. When I came back, Haley had played the move, queen to d2. And I thought for a long time. I think here I lost 17 minutes on the clock. At this point, let's see. I recorded our times for the first time. I normally don't do that. Yeah. At this point, Haley had 1 hour and 8 minutes on the clock, and I had 1 hour and 2 minutes. So we've both used, a fair amount of time on the opening, which I think is fair. It was a complicated opening. But yeah, I'm done on time. After my next move, I only had 47 minutes left, which means that I used 15 minutes exactly. I would say about 2 of those minutes were spent eating challah bread, but 13 minutes were spent trying to come up with a plan for the middle game. I was thinking about a lot of different things. The first thing I thought about was that queen looked vulnerable. It's only being defended by a knight, and that knight is only being defended by a bishop. Also, the queens are staring at each other, and also I've been studying tactical patterns from Kostya Kavutsky's 100 Tactical Patterns You Must Know. One of those tactical patterns is tactical pattern number 13, the knight and queen versus queen battery, where essentially you move the knight away against your opponent's undefended queen in such a way that when queen takes queen, you have an intermezzo capture check, essentially. At some point, I can show an example, but I don't really know how to switch between games. So I was considering the move bishop g4, which I ultimately rejected. But the plan of this is actually quite simple. It's to threaten to take the bishop, because were the knight to take back, I would win. I would take this knight. Here, let's say white does nothing. I would take the bishop. Sorry. My plan was to take the knight first. I was going to take this knight and then take the bishop. The idea is queen takes queen is met by knight takes knight, check. You have to respond to that. I take your queen back, and I'm up a piece because I had taken this bishop on f4 with my knight. This knight took 2 pieces and then was lost, right? So it's a desperado sacrifice, essentially. So I think I was, maybe over-determining things, sort of forcing the position into the tactical motifs that I knew, because here, of course, white just takes back with the queen. Once I saw this, which honestly was about halfway through my think, this was the main move I was considering for a while, I realized that this pattern is garbage, doesn't work here at all, and it's just going to activate white's queen. Yeah, so I didn't go for that. I was also thinking about just knight takes bishop, going for the endgame. So knight takes bishop, knight takes back, trading queens. But I thought I was worse here because, again, there's nagging pressure on my bishop. And if I ever move my bishop, then white has the remove the guard tactic of taking the knight, I take back, and taking my bishop here, right? Because my knight on c6 was the only thing protecting my bishop. So I figured that with my bishops lined up under white's rook on the e-file, I would be worse in the endgame because I don't have rooks on the center files. So I ultimately rejected the endgame. Let's see, I was thinking of some other things too. I was thinking of takes, and then just going here. But I was worried about this move. I calculated this move and determined that I was totally fine. But I mean, I think white is better. Like I'm totally fine in that I don't see any immediate tactics for white. But I feel like white has got to be better here. Black is way better because the queen is hanging. I'm so silly. Wow, here you just take the queen, obviously. So I guess hopefully that's not what I was calculating because that would be depressing. Takes back, or maybe takes back with the bishop. But this looks nasty because I'm not having any central presence with my rooks. And now maybe there's a move like this, where, my knight is under some pressure. My c-pawn would be taken let's say I do something stupid. This c pawn would be taken, and also my bishop. So I figure just in general, things opening up in that way are beneficial to white. I was also considering queen b6. Just putting some pressure over on the queen side. This is in a line with white's king, so eventually maybe I have ideas of pushing to c4 and starting some kind of dark squared something. But ultimately I went for, after 15-minute think, just the move rook e8, because I figure in all of the lines I was considering, my biggest weakness is just my e7 bishop. It's never, ever bad to play rook e8, and I might as well pass the move back. So this is the best move. I'm proud to have found the best move. I'm very proud to have discarded my immature tactical ideas with bishop g4, but I'm not proud of taking 15 minutes on this move. I think that it should be my first instinct to play a move like rook e8, not a sort of later choice after my tactical ideas don't work. I think your first instinct should be to play a move like rook e8, and not to move a piece twice before you're consolidated. Anyway, so I played rook e8. Happy to have played that. And white spends a while thinking too, because we've entered the middle game and we got to come up with some plans. I'm sure white was calculating this sacrifice, but that's not, you would take this pawn with the queen, of course. But I figure after bishop f8, which is kind of a canonical way to respond to these, white doesn't really have this check because the queen just takes. White doesn't really have this infiltration because I would take the queen. So white would have to kind of go back, but that allows me to bring my knight back. And this queen looks like completely trapped to me. I think the queen is just trapped. So in this position, white would have to just return on the diagonal essentially. But because the two most active squares are the three most active squares in the diagonal are all covered, you'd have to go back to d3 essentially. But then I'm just gonna fianchetto, and I have tons and tons of time to consolidate. My queen's coming to f6, my rook is coming to d8. My king's weak, but I have the center. I have central presence with my knights, so you can't checkmate a king with one piece, and any pieces that would try to jump in, so by which I mean the knights. I guess there is this g5 outpost, so I'd have to be careful there, but most of these central dark squares I have covered, because my knight on c6 is doing a great job. Also, f6 I have covered with this knight, so I figured that this doesn't work. That's correct. Haley also figured that it doesn't work. So black played rook e8, and white just played rook d1. So yeah, the pressure is building. At some point it's going to break. Kind of a critical moment. I thought here for only 3 minutes, and I think I should have thought longer, because I played a move that was good, but it was not the best move. It was the right idea. I was debating here between two moves. Well, after a while I was debating between two moves. They were queen b6 and queen a5. Both of these moves, the plan is to get the queen out and then put my other rook as soon as possible on the d-file, because this queen is starting to annoy me because of the sacrifice idea. So if I can get that queen on the side of my rook, I can quickly bring my knight back, trade off some rooks in the center, and just equalize. Queen b6 turns out to be the best move, but I played queen a5. The reason why is because I thought I'm effectuating the exact same plan, but with tempo, right? So it seems logically better. I'm going to be taking on a2. Now, in order to consider these moves, you have to determine that the sacrifice on h6 is not effective. And yeah, I had determined that because of the idea of moving the bishop back to f8, and because I control all the center dark squares. And so there are, again, you can't checkmate a king with only one queen. You would need to bring in a knight, and there are no effective knight hops. So I played knight a5. Haley thought for about 5 minutes and went for it. I was pretty sure this was unsound. So I took back, and queen takes, bishop back to f8. Turns out this is the right plan. But neither of us really evaluated it for the right reason. This is so Haley at this point is up on the clock by a good deal. I have 43 minutes left, and she has 52 minutes left. So 9-minute advantage. Also, in general, I'm a rather slow player. I take my time thinking on stuff. and she can play good moves pretty quickly. So and then after this point, all of Haley's moves were blitzed. So the idea was to put a ton of pressure on my clock, psychological pressure on me. That's how a lot of people have beaten me in games, honestly, is by blitzing moves in positions where I have good plans and sort of like pressuring me into playing fast. I've talked about this in the past. It's an effective strategy, but I was sort of prepared for this. And also, that's not why the sacrifice is good. The sacrifice is not good because you have a stressful mating attack. Because again, any piece you try to bring in to, pour on the pressure, I'm just going to trade off with one of my knights. So yeah, that's why I felt okay here. But actually, as it turns out, the sacrifice is good for positional reasons. It's not good because you're going to try to checkmate me, as I saw. But it is good because it's not really a full piece sack. It ends up just being an exchange sack. So when you go back here, and I block with the bishop, as happened in the game, all these are the best moves and essentially forced. In this position, if you don't play bishop f8, it's +3. If you do, it's like plus 0.4, I think. You have to go back here, otherwise you allow the knight in with tempo, and which I think traps the queen. You have to block with the bishop, and white should play rook takes knight. Bishop takes rook, queen takes rook. I saw this, and I determined that after rook d1, rook d8, or even queen d8, the attack has fizzled out. In fact, it kind of has fizzled out. But what you've got to see here is that white is only down an exchange for 2 pawns, right? Because they sacrificed a bishop for 2 pawns, and then got 2 pieces for a rook. Those add up to an exchange stack for 2 pawns. Even in an endgame, which this will go into eventually after I force a trade of queens, white is not worse. In fact, white is a bit better, just because of their kingside majority. And frankly, after all these traits in the center, my knight here was actually doing a really good job of defending against knight hops, right? So now there is knight f4. There is also eventually knight g5. My bishop can't really guard them both. And yeah, white's going to have not only a serious initiative here, but even in the endgame isn't worse, right? So the reason why it's good is because the risk is low, not because you're going to freak me out and checkmate me. So Haley was right to go for the sacrifice, but I think given her playing style afterward for the wrong reasons, and I was wrong to say that the sacrifice was bad, or to think the sacrifice was bad in the game, but also for the wrong reasons. So this just goes to show that sometimes in intermediate level games, we play the best moves for like 6 moves in a row, thinking not at all the correct thoughts, which is just fun. Lots to learn. Anyway, so bishop to g7. We did not get rook takes knight, but instead h5. This is the second best move. Unfortunately, it gives me the advantage. And the reason why is because it gives me time to consolidate. It looks really, really scary. It looks like this is the fastest moving plan, right? Because white's threatening to win the bishop with h6. That would just be mate. Well, I would have to sack the bishop, and if I'm sacking the bishop, I'm way worse, right? Because my king is exposed and I'm down a pawn. That would not be good. But I saw that I saw when I played queen a5 that I have 2 moves here, both of which seem to do essentially the same job. And so I thought for a good long time here. How long did I think? I thought for 5 minutes. Given the fact that I had 38 minutes down on the clock and I knew that clock pressure was becoming part of the game, I think that's a while. But I made the wrong choice. So the moves that I was considering were f6, because it forces the queen back. And now when you have a knight like 3 squares behind a pawn, the side with the pawn is very happy because the pawn serves as a spike. Both of the knight's main hops are blocked by the pawn. So I figure even in the event that, I don't know, I don't have my knights defending the hops in the center, at least I now have a pawn. This is like an anti-cavalry setup. So this looked very good, like just kind of from a positional perspective, defending squares. And then the other move is, of course, forcing the issue with queen d8. This has the advantage of not really allowing queen h4 because there's going to be a queen trade. There's kind of no square for the queen to go, except for back. I figure you probably want to go back to c1 to maintain the pin on the queen, right? That's the disadvantage of my move queen d8. Because any other move either loses the queen or allows a queen trade. And white presumably does not want a queen trade here. But I actually didn't like this position because of the pin. What I missed was that my next move is getting out of the pin. Like, literally my next move, if Haley goes back to c1, is to play queen to f6. And while this is, not quite as good anti-cavalry as a pawn on f6, it has the benefit of leaving my light squared bishop protected. So I have this kind of blockade on the light squares, which is nice. And then also, yeah, it is serving as anti-cavalry because these two squares, e5 and g5, are already under my control. The queen just adds more control. In this position, black is winning. Much better. I think it's minus 1.5. I went for the wrong idea. I went for f6. And this justifies the attack. Now the attack is good for the reasons that we were both thinking, because it's a mating attack. Not that mate is forced, but I think it's now +2. White goes back, and I make another mistake that makes it +3. I play king to h8. My idea is that I don't really like the move h6, and I'd like to take that pawn. And of course, I have this f6 pawn defended. The reason why this, and I had seen king h8 when I played f6, right? So my plan essentially in this position was f6 and king h7. Sorry, not king h8. So, but this plan of f6 and king h7 is deeply flawed for several reasons. One, because it leaves my e6 bishop a lot looser. And two, because that f6 pawn actually is a serious weakness, not a strength at all. It's only being defended by my knight on d5 and my bishop on g7, and those pieces actually turn out to be the most loose pieces in my position. And so if I'm centering my defense around f6, but f6 is defended by loose pieces, then f6 is going to fall and my whole defense is going to crumble. I will show you how that happens. If I play this here, then Haley can play h6. I could go back, but... Oh, wait. Let me make the position the way it was in the game. Yeah. I could... yeah. So what White would do here is play h6. I could take it. I probably have to take it. I guess I could drop back. It's probably better to drop back, honestly. But this looks not very nice. But let's say I take. My bishop is no longer defending f6, and now there's c4. Another c4 move that I am totally missing. Another c4 move attacking a knight on d5. What's crazy is in our very first game, back in December, the reason why White got a better position out of the opening was because of his c4 move that I had missed. So now there's 3 c4 moves as White that Haley has got against me potentially to get winning positions. So you gotta check c4 is all I'm saying. Yeah, so I think this would be the winning plan. Is to just dislodge the knight, and then of course the f6 pawn falls. And I am crumbling. I guess I could probably just drop back, but then I think c4 anyway. And this rook looks nasty. Of course, even without c4, you have the exchange. Sorry, if I take this pawn, you have the exchange sack winning this pawn, and I think White is winning here too. So here's what happened in the game. White, playing bullet speeds, plays h6, I take, and queen takes f6. Of course, this hangs the queen to the knight, and that's how the game ended, essentially. We kept going a little bit, but I converted pretty quickly. So yeah, ramping up the psychological pressure puts pressure on yourself and not just the opponent. And playing for sacrifices for psychological pressure works less in classical than it does in like faster time frames if your opponent's ready for it. I've had some games where my opponent has essentially won because of that strategy, but I was sort of happy from a philosophical perspective that I'm not just getting crushed a million times because my opponents are making sacrifices for the wrong reasons and then beating me on stress. So this felt good. Yeah, I think here there's very little left. We got a bunch of piece trades. Of course, you take with the queen, and yeah, I think this is how the game ended. Knight comes out. I went here. Oh, that's check. This cannot be what happened because that would be terrible. But maybe this was possible. I don't know. The game ended with a bunch of piece trades. I sacrificed, I think, like 2 exchanges or 1 exchange and a piece just to trade everything down. And ultimately it was like queen and knight versus rook or something. Or yeah, I was left with a queen versus a rook, I think, something like that. But yeah, that's how I won the game. I was not happy that this happened. From like a I want to get better at chess perspective, just because this defense, while not possible at a computer level or probably a master level, white is winning here. Not when they lose the queen, but white is winning. I guess let's make reasonable moves. White is winning in this position. I thought that actually, from a intermediate perspective, my defense is actually okay. I'm going to put a rook on d8. I'm going to take this pawn and try to take this pawn. I have my anti-cavalry spike. And I'm still, if I had seen to move the bishop back and not just take the pawn, which I guess the way I played in the game proves that I probably wouldn't have seen that. But I thought that this would be an interesting game to try to defend. One of my games, I think this was in March, I played Steven, who is another tournament director. I seem to be playing all the tournament directors. Justin, Haley, and Steven are all the tournament directors. And Rob, and I've played them all, 2 of them several times. But yeah, Steven and I had a game also in a closed Sicilian, also where white made a sacrifice, but only of a pawn, but also where the sacrifice was unsound in the way that white played it. And Steven had won by playing really fast, stressing me out, and then I blundered. But we had a position that was sort of similar to this, where I had a sort of exposed kingside, and there was an attack with knights and queens. And I sort of wanted a chance to replay that style of defense, because I mean, if you're going to play the Sicilian, you have to know how to defend crazy kingside attacks with knights and queens. They happen all the time. So I was really excited to try to defend this. So in a way, I'm kind of bummed that this happened. Also, Haley's just a really good player. I think we're about like even in skill. Haley maybe being a bit better positionally. And so I thought if the game went into an endgame eventually, I could learn a lot from what the endgame would look like. So yeah, sad that this happened. But yeah, again, like I'm really happy that I'm getting better at staying cool and not letting clock pressure be the determining factor in a game against me. Because if I want to be, improving at chess, it's not just about chess skill, it is about chess psychology as well. As unfortunate as that is, I wish it were just about technical skill and chess could just be like a puzzle, like a jigsaw puzzle that you do in your room in a cozy way. But no, it's a, intense, competitive, like deeply psychological game. And yeah, I guess this game I learned a lot about chess psychology, or I showed my improvement in chess psychology and just over the board vision, even though I made a good deal of instructive mistakes. What I'm mostly going to take away from this game is if you're defending against a kingside attack and you can trade queens, just trade the queens. Like the most important mistake that I made was not playing queen to d8. Because I saw this move and didn't go for it, which is silly. There is essentially, like, even if f6 is better than queen d8, like, I should still play queen d8 because it's safer. Even if the sort of anti-cavalry spike idea is effective and my knight here is invulnerable and it's better to add a little bit more defense, like, why would I not force the queen back and then centralize my queen? Because this just adds even more, like, central control. So that's the main thing I'm going to take from this. And then the secondary main thing I'm going to take from this is that in the closed Sicilian, when you get checked, you block with a dark squared bishop, because especially if there are maneuvers that allow the knights to come to f4 and g5. Of course, here we'd get takes, and takes. And then a couple of things that I'm proud of from this game. I am proud of like psychologically defending resiliently, and I am proud of allowing the IQP and realizing that it's totally okay. Yeah, so cool game. I think my rating's up to about 1,500 now, so that's pretty awesome. I'm now 1-for-1 in the May Tuesday Night Swiss. I'm being paired against. Theoretically, I'm paired against Tyler Berry, who I was theoretically paired against in April. You never know who you're really going to be paired against until the last second, because people take buys, things get switched around, so I probably won't play him again. But what's funny is my friend Liam, who also teaches chess to elementary schoolers, sometimes we teach together, is playing in this section and also won his first game. And we met a nice guy named Santiago who also won his first game. And the three of us were analyzing our games together and learning each other's opening repertoire. So 3 of the 6 players with the full point right now, we now all know each other's repertoire and playing style. And I'm sure we'll get paired against each other. In fact, I think those 2 are already paired. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting social experience in the next coming games. And I'm going to have to come up with some surprise weapons. Anyway, hope this was helpful.